seeing the light at the end of the tunnel and can vision the final assembly phases of putting Dorothy back together here. I wanted to set up a new playlist to share some lessons learned, things that I would have done differently, things that I would not have done, or things that I would have done throughout my experience in the last couple years of restoring this car. Just to give you an idea a little bit about myself, to see what my experience level was. I grew up around cars. My grandfather was a master mechanic back in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, into the 60s. When I came on the scene, I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. I can remember playing around in his garage. In that garage was a 59 TR3 that was up on wooden blocks, and in the back was a 59 AC Bristol Coupe, which was also on blocks, I think. And I can remember jumping inside of those cars and pretending like I was driving. Neither of them I had ever seen them move out of their own power. They were always there up until the day I last remember visiting the garage. But I grew up enjoying cars, obviously. Bought a 69 VW Bug when I was probably 14 or 15 to try to fix that up and learn on a little bit. And then I bought a 76 MG Midget right before I got my driver's license, got that thing running. And then I bought a 78 280Z in the last year or so of my high school years. Also, during the last 2 years of high school, I attended auto mechanics courses on my local high school vocational technical center, and did pretty well with that. But in about my junior year, sometime fall of my junior year, I decided that I wanted to enlist in the United States Navy in the submarine force, specifically to go nuclear power, and that's what I did. So in July of 1990, I became a nuclear reactor operator, went through a couple years of school, and hit my first submarine, and the rest was history there. About 24 years later, I retired in August of 2014. I bought Dorothy. Finally, after all those years, able to rekindle my love for working on cars, and decided that she was the one that I was going to pick. So I picked her up for about $1,800 off of some local gentleman. Bottom 4 inches of her completely rusted away. Didn't really understand what I was getting into, but knew that I was ready to take on the challenge. So you've been with me now for the last year and a half or so, 2 years. I don't remember how long it's been. And hopefully you've learned some things and learned how not to do some things, like upholstery. But I'll share some lessons learned, and like I said, with tidbits that I've learned over the years. And I got 2 for you to start off. So here's the cups in the aftermath of the Raptor liner that I had left and not used. Poured back in. These I had in the past dipped these in paint thinner to try to get all this stuff out of here and clean it up and all that. Same thing kind of works for the epoxy. I don't think I've tried it with the build primer. But essentially, if you let this stuff dry for a couple days, it'll just kind of peel right out of there. It's actually pretty neat. But now your cup is almost perfectly clean. So if you're stressing of saving the cups or something like that, and you're chucking them and don't think you can save them, just let your paint fully cure up. And like I said, I'm not positive this would work with the build primers, but for the epoxy and the Raptor liner, I would imagine it will work for the build primer. Just let that stuff cure up for a couple days and let it fully dry, and you can just pull that stuff right out of there and maybe have a pretty decoration. Wanted to share a little tip that I just came up with that is not very difficult, but this is all this stuff here that you see, these bolts. This is all a kit that I picked up from Rimmer. That's all of the mounting hardware for the rear bumper. So there's a lot of little pieces, parts, and stuff gets stacked properly and all that kind of stuff. So I put them all into one big bag, and everything gets jumbled and lost and all that kind of stuff. So what I did was put the stack up together properly, and then just put a quick little piece of tape on there, and it just prevents incidental stuff from falling apart. Just, a little something. This will go in a bag, and you situate it, look at the drawings and how stuff goes together and stacks up, and then you put it in a bag and you get all jumbled up, and you might not have that drawing real handy or something like that, but this will help you hopefully keep track of that.